From Atlanta, Georgia, welcome to Fearfully and Wonderfully Me, a podcast for women on leadership and life skills with Rhea Story. Rhea shares powerful life and leadership principles, helping you maximize your potential and become the woman God created you to be.
Welcome to 360 Influence, a life and leadership success podcast for women. Today we're talking about firing your limiting beliefs because I know that at some time every single one of us have had to face a limiting belief, or a limiting belief has held us back. So what is a limiting belief? A limiting belief is something that we think or believe, and it holds us back. It inhibits us and who we are. It inhibits our potential. Limiting beliefs are our beliefs about ourselves or our potential, our self-identity, or the world around us. And they can be very toxic because they change the way that we act, the way that we go forward, because they hold us back. It's basing our perception of ourself and our potential based on something that isn't true. So, and I think that's key to define here. Limiting beliefs are something that is not true, that holds us back. Now, that's different than understanding reality. My talent as a gifted artist is very limited, and that's not a limiting belief. That's just reality. I can't paint. I can't draw. There's nothing wrong with that, but it just means I don't need to pursue a career in that field because I'm never going to be very gifted or talented. And that's okay. That's simply reality. A limiting belief is something different. It's when we hold ourselves back because of something we have created or accepted as reality that is not true. And I'll share with you one of my limiting beliefs for many years, especially after leaving home. I grew up in a dysfunctional home at best, and being sexually abused for many years. And my parents, particularly my father, always told me that I was not athletic. In fact, it was kind of a joke in our family. They just really made fun of me and any attempts I made to be athletic in any way, to run or do anything outside. And I really started to accept that as reality. I started to create my self-image as someone who was, not athletic, not able to get out and go run, or not able to hit a ball or do anything like that. And for many years, I owned that. I claimed it as my reality. It was a limiting belief. And when I started taking group fitness exercises, and that was incredibly empowering for me because it helped me overcome a little bit of that self-limiting belief. It gave me another dimension to say, hey, I could, I might not be very athletic, but maybe I could do group exercise. And that was a great opportunity for me, just to get a little bit of empowerment in overcoming that limiting belief. But it was still there. It still held me back. And many years ago, I remember this conversation just crystal clear, because it was really, as I talk about defining moments, this was one of them for me. I was getting ready to take a group fitness exercise class, and the instructor came up, and she was really just talking to everyone before the class and just, interacting with us, how you doing, get to know us kind of thing. And she complimented my form in the classes that she had been teaching. And so I was grateful, and I appreciated it, and I thanked her. And I told her just how much I was enjoying it. And she said, well, you should consider teaching. And that was a mind-blowing moment for me, because I had never considered that I could be the one leading the group fitness class. I'd always perceived myself as not being athletic, as not being gifted physically, as kind of the klutz of the family. And to have someone believe in me who didn't really even know me that well, but just said, you could do this. You could be the one to teach these group fitness classes. And it was just mind-blowing in what it did to say, hey, there is a possibility here that I had previously never even considered. Well, 6 months later, I was signed up for my first training to teach group fitness. And, about 10 years later, I'm still teaching group fitness. And I enjoy it in just so many ways, because it really helps me have the opportunity to be that person to open up someone else's perception and just say, you can do this. You don't have to let your perception of yourself and saying, I'm not good at athletics, or I'm not good at fitness, or maybe I don't enjoy fitness. So teaching group fitness allows me to change that reality and that limiting belief for someone else. And, I'd really enjoy that. It's just incredibly rewarding. It's something that I try to work around our travel schedule and speaking, and that it allows me to just interact with people in a different dimension, still empowering, still encouraging, but just in a physical dimension instead of just being on stage. And, it was incredible how sometimes the words of a stranger can challenge our limiting beliefs and open those doors for us. Now, that's wonderful. If you've had that experience, that's fantastic. But sometimes we don't have the words of a stranger to open up our limiting beliefs or to help us see beyond them. And so sometimes it's necessary for us to challenge our own limiting beliefs. And I love to talk about just firing them, firing your limiting beliefs. I fired my limiting belief that I was not an athlete, that I was not gifted physically. I started teaching group fitness and I started training to run marathons. Mac and I started mountain bike racing, and I wasn't really great at any of those things to begin with. But I continued to work on them and continued to improve. And I'm training for marathon number 7 now as we speak, getting ready to run this fall, my 7th marathon. And every time I get ready to run a marathon, I want to challenge myself, set a goal, set a goal to do it better. And I don't always make it. I didn't make it last year. And there's nothing wrong with that. I've come to realize that setting the goal and working toward it, sometimes I may not reach it, but it's not failure. It's simply learning. I learn what to do better, what I can do differently next time. And I try again, because it's only failure if I quit. Our limiting beliefs often tell us that if we fail at doing something, we are a failure. And that is a limiting belief, because when we fail at something, anything we try, we may have the possibility of failing, but it's only failure if we don't try again. You think about when you learned to walk, you didn't fail to learn to walk. You fell and you got up and you tried again, and you fell the other way and you got up and tried again, and you bumped your nose the third time you fell, and you got up and you tried again and you tried again. And we don't call it failing to learn to walk, right? We just get up and we try again. And life is often like that. Any dream that we have, any goal that we have, there are going to be setbacks. There are going to be opportunities where we have the temptation to give up. And if we listen to those self-limiting beliefs and saying, I can't do this, or I'm not good enough to do this, then we allow them to win. So many opportunities for limiting beliefs to hold us back. I'm not good enough, or I'm not fast enough, or I'm not smart enough. I'm not worthy enough. It happens in our relationships, in our job opportunities. It happens in our perception of ourselves. I can't do something because I'm not fill in the blank. So how do we overcome those? How do we overcome limiting beliefs? I think there are 2 critical steps. The first one is identify the error, or identify the limiting belief. Identify what's a false perception. Because if we don't identify it, we can't overcome it, right? We've got to be aware. We've got to raise our awareness to be aware that it's there and aware that it's holding us back. And that's key. That's why it's so important to be developing ourselves, to be reading personal growth books, to be listening to, great TEDx talks and a podcast and things like that, because every single piece of information that we can learn helps us raise our awareness. And that personal growth helps empower us to be more aware of the things that we create that are holding us back. So the first key step, identify the untruth or the error or the lie that we've been telling ourselves. And the second step is reframe it. If we tell ourselves a story about ourselves, we can tell ourselves a different story. And many times it's just changing the story we are telling ourselves that allows us to accomplish what we've been striving for. So I told you I'm training for my 7th marathon. And for many years, I've had the goal of running a marathon in under 4 hours, which is a pretty big goal. Not a lot of people do that overall. And several times I've tried and several times I've come close, but I've never quite made it. And so, I had a limiting belief at first that I wasn't an athlete, that I wasn't talented physically. And then I had a perception that, well, I might be a runner, but I wasn't a fast runner. And so I'm still learning to challenge that belief about myself and say, you know what, I can improve. I can train harder. I can train differently. I can get better. Now, I'm never going to be an Olympic marathoner, and that's okay. That's reality. But that's different than a limiting belief in saying I can't improve in something. So November, I'll get ready to try again. The closest I've ever come was 4 hours and 9 minutes. So close and so possible. And yet the joy is in the journey. Now that I've identified the limiting belief, now I'm working to reframe the story. And as I've reframed the story about myself, I find that a whole new possibility exists. So if we can identify the error, identify the untruth, then reframe the story we tell ourselves, because it's the stories that we tell ourselves that determine how we feel, and how we feel determines what we do, and what we do determines our results in life. Thank you. Until next time.
Start increasing your influence and maximizing your potential with Ria's audiobooks. Available at audible.com, amazon.com, and iBooks. Please visit riastory.com to learn about Ria's books, resources, speaking, and training programs. Thanks for listening.